In the last few years, the world has experienced the most extreme weather in living memory. In Britain, in 2010, the country experienced one of the most severe winters ever, with high snowfalls and record low temperatures. The year after was the second warmest year in 353 years, and the year after that had the wettest summer in a century. Then the spring of 2013 was the coldest in 50 years. So how come the famously uninteresting British weather has suddenly become so dramatic? The Met Office, Britain's National Weather Service, held a meeting with some of the UK's leading scientists and meteorologists to try to answer this question. The Met Office has been observing the weather for over 150 years. Today, it is known as one of the most accurate forecasters in the world. But they don't just predict the weather, they also use their data to identify shifts in the world's climate by collecting and analysing data from weather stations all over the UK and all around the world. They believe that these extreme weather conditions are influenced by climate change. This change is happening at an unusually fast rate and can't be explained by the Earth's natural cycles. Scientists therefore believe climate change is almost certainly caused by human activity. This opinion is echoed by weather experts around the world. Almost all scientists analysing weather patterns believe that the Earth is warming and that human activity is responsible. So, if nearly all the experts agree, surely there's a consensus on the fact that our activities are causing climate change. Well, not exactly.
I'm not skeptical of the science as much as how people interpret the science in popular media, saying that, the heat wave that's coming through is because of global warming. I think people use global warming more day to day than what the science actually tells you about the incremental effect that pollution and all of those things is having on day-to-day life around the world.
I don't believe it's human caused. I do believe it exists and it's definitely happening at the moment. But I think it's a cycle that's been happening for the last few million years, and it's a natural occurrence.
I do think humans are definitely responsible for climate change. I mean, it's just something that's actually happening. I think a lot of people don't care about it. Some people do. A lot of people do care about it. I think that we're going to find ways of living, whether it's there or not. So,
I think it's because we don't totally understand it. And I think if we were educated a little bit more on it, then we wouldn't be so skeptical.
As people often point out, this is not the first time that the Earth's climate has changed. So why are humans now getting the blame? And why is this such an important issue? Dr. Adam Corner explains.
The climate has always changed, and it always will do. The Earth went in and out of several ice ages long before humans were here. But the difference with the climate change that we see at the moment is the pace that it's happening. So, all things being equal, we should be very, very gradually at an imperceptible rate heading towards the next ice age. But what's actually happening is that we're racing in the other direction. The Earth is getting warmer. So it's the pace of change and whether humans and other species and the natural environment can keep up with that pace of change. That's the question.
So when all the evidence seems to point to one conclusion, why don't some people believe that climate change is a problem? And why do some people believe that the public is being deliberately misinformed about the issue?
My name's Dr. Adam Corner. I work in the School of Psychology at Cardiff University and also for an organisation called COIN, which stands for Climate Outreach Information Network. And I'm very interested in how people understand climate change, how they think about the risks of climate change and how to communicate it more effectively. One of the reasons that it's thought that climate change is difficult for us to get to grips with psychologically is that it's a distant threat, and it's distant in several ways. So it's distant in terms of timescales involved, it's not really happening here and now, and it's also quite intangible, so we can't really touch it or smell it or feel it most of the time. What we experience is daily weather, and that's not necessarily a good guide to the global climate.
He believes that the evidence is so overwhelming that there should be a consensus on the existence and causes of climate change.
Every science academy around the world, almost every government around the world, agrees that human activity is changing the climate, and it's changing the climate through the release of greenhouse gases associated with our burning of fossil fuels, oil, gas, things like that.
But despite this strong evidence, there are some skeptics. Some people believe the evidence has been exaggerated, and some even say that global warming is a worldwide conspiracy.
Psychologists have been interested in measuring public perceptions to climate change over the last 10 to 15 years, and over that time there's been changes in public attitudes. But one of the things that's been fairly consistent is there is a small group of people, small but vocal group of people, who doubt the reality or the seriousness of climate change. So perhaps they suggest that climate change is just a ruse to tax citizens more or something like that.
Dr. Corner believes these inexpert and untrained conspiracy theorists are misinforming the public, especially through unregulated media such as the internet.
The great thing about the internet is that it does allow broader participation in debates about critical issues like climate change, but at the same time it can also amplify voices that perhaps aren't as prevalent as they seem to be when you look at blogs. The idea that climate change is a conspiracy is a view that is only held by a small minority of people, but it is a minority that's overrepresented on internet blogs.
Dr. Corner says that climate change skeptics have disproportionate access to the mainstream media too. Journalists routinely seek their opinion in order to be objective.
The media has been criticised over the years for doing something that's called presenting false balance on climate change. So there's a norm in media reporting that if there's a story, you present both sides of that story. With something like climate change, because the weight of scientific evidence is so overwhelmingly on one side that it is happening and that human activity is causing climate change, presenting that view and then a sceptical view about climate change in opposition to it doesn't actually reflect the reality.
Climate change will affect every area of our lives, the way we live, the way we work, and the way our society is organised. That's why we need to make sure information on climate change is clear and engaging, and comes from a trusted and reliable source.